Welcome to the April 15th, 2016 edition of Colorado Inside Out Postgame, a special web exclusive production here on Channel 12. Let's get a quick take on the Denver City Council considering a proposal this week that would have restricted the growth of recreational marijuana businesses in Denver. The proposal will be reconsidered after a deadlock vote by the council last Monday. It'll be reconsidered next Monday. Patty Calhoun from Westward, you are an expert on a lot of issues, but especially how Denver regulates marijuana. Were you surprised by the deadlock vote that it's pushing this issue to be considered next week?
I wasn't surprised there was a deadlock. It's just too bad that time is getting so short now. So this came up on Monday night at Monday night's council meeting after long talks about zoning. So it was late anyway. There was a lot people wanted to talk about. What Robert Knish came in with is kind of a cap in certain neighborhoods, so they will not have too many shops. The biggest problem, the sticking point for most people, is the fact that some applications were already in and have been put on hold. So do those applications get thrown out? Do they get grandfathered in? And that's really the sticking point. But they have to come to a compromise soon, because if they can't get an ordinance proposed and then have a final vote, the moratorium will probably wind up being lifted on May 1.
David Copeland from the Independence Institute and DU Law School. Is the city of Denver treating this really new business fairly?
Overall, yes. And part of our constitutional amendment enacted by the people to re-legalize marijuana also very strongly authorizes strict regulation. So zoning laws on that are completely fine. And I think Denver could actually, one thing they ought to maybe concentrate even more on is one of the biggest impacts for the neighbors is odors from the grow facilities. And you can put carbon filters on the air circulation systems there. Some facilities have them, but not all do. And it might be better to go and get those places that don't have it to put it on. Patty hit exactly the right issue, which is strict regulation is absolutely okay constitutionally in Colorado, but it's not fair in a due process sense or just in general to say that when you have somebody who's put in an application months ago, who's already invested sometimes millions of dollars in buying a place, to turn around and say, oh, your application was perfectly lawful at the time you submitted it, but now you're just out of luck. That's not fair. They ought to, as they've often done in the past with zoning changes, they've let people who already had the applications in go ahead under the old system.
Eric Sonderman, political analyst, beyond the different details of this particular issue at the Denver City Council, do you think there's been a momentum shift from marijuana activists, pro-marijuana activists, to some of the anti-marijuana activists that are trying to at least stem the momentum?
I wouldn't call it a momentum shift. I might call it a pause. I think people look around, and if you put amendment, what was it, 64, back on the ballot, it would pass like it did years ago, and it would pass by a stronger margin. I think this state is increasingly making its peace with marijuana as an industry. But there is a particular concentration of that industry in some neighborhoods, and I think that is causing some voters who are more ambivalent about the whole issue to take a pause or say we need a timeout. I think Patty nailed it very much so in terms of the legislative fight that's now going on at City Council in terms of the regulation. David's point is right in terms of what somebody who has an application that was filed in a timely way, what rights do they have? I do have to say, I think Councilman Paul Lopez, Councilwoman Debbie Ortega, and others who have been on the other side of this issue from Robin Knish have a good point on their own, which is that all the rights are not with the applicants. And we're talking about a substantial number of applicants. We're not talking about one or two. There's volume there. And that people in these neighborhoods where there's now such a glut of this industry, whether it's stores, whether it's grow houses, whatever it is, they have rights to quality of life. And as with most things Denver City Council undertakes, it's about balancing those rights, and there's not a perfect balance.
Natasha Gardner, senior editor of 5280 Magazine. piggybacking on Eric's point, what is the right balance for the Denver City Council to approach, at least at this point?
Well, it certainly is complicated because I think, headlines are about pot, and so it seems like a fun, topic to talk about, but it's really not. It's about the sausage making of a city. And when it comes down to is, and I might be wrong here, but I don't see a lot of massive grow houses being built in Wash Park where real estate is a bit more expensive than, say, northern Globeville. And that's where those neighborhood disparities come into play. So it's a real estate issue, it's a neighborhood issue, and it's industry issue. The pending applications right now would represent about an 11% increase in the total number of active places if all of them went through, which of course probably wouldn't happen. So it is a substantial amount that could change the face of some neighborhoods and certainly of the city. But the pot is going to stay here in Colorado. I mean, Ted Cruz has finally come on board and said he's not going to do anything about it. He sort of slept off on the banking question, which is really the question that needs to be answered on a federal level. But I just have to, I love bad jokes, and I have to throw this out there. I was reading the Denver Post article on this, and they had the number of active grow houses and retail dispensaries and whatever in the city, and they had the numbers broken up. So of course, as a reporter, I added them up. There are 420 active grow houses in Denver. Just had to put that.
Apparently the ideal number we should stick with.
Now I understand the moratorium. Now I totally get it.
Had to stop.
Again, Natasha, you've made it crystal clear on here very well. And when it comes to bad jokes, this is the exact table to bring them to. So thank you for doing that. That is all the time we have for Colorado Inside Postgame this week. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you think. For everyone here at CPT12.org, I'm Dominic Dezzutti. Thanks for watching.